Soon as it dries up, we'll be in here fertilizing and planting. 2020, we decided to look at an alternative irrigation system. It's called SDI, subsurface drip irrigation. We went down to Texas. There's a lot of it down there. We were pretty interested by what they were doing. We decided to bring it north of the border. And so far, it's been fantastic. So this is the drip line that we have installed in this field at a 36-inch spacing. This is called an emitter by Netafim. It emits 0.11 gallons of water per hour. We can set different zones that we want to have turn on and off. Everything is done by the NMC controller. It feeds the information back wireless to the filter house. The depth is, our target depth was 11.5 inches, just depends on the soil structure. In Texas, this system is called 30-30-30. So there's 30% less water, 30% less operating cost. They get 30% more productivity from the subsurface drip. The first year we installed it, it was unbelievable. We got basically no rain, and we managed to have a yield of 100 bushels per acre. Then the next year came along and we seeded mustard. It was a beautiful crop. The seed pod depth was about 4 inches greater than normally, and all the pods had double fours in them. Unfortunately, on a Sunday afternoon, hail came through the center of it and took out 90%. But we were on target for a 50 bushel yield, which is unheard of. I'm just a little mole on a chunk of ground. And, there's farmers that are so much larger than I am and so much better farmers than I am. I just want to be a steward of the land. And that's where my heart lays.
At Lethbridge College, Senior Research Chair Willemijn Appels is looking into how subsurface drip irrigation technology could be used more widely in Alberta. Willemijn, it is great to have you with us. Hi there.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Okay, I want to start with, can you tell us how long this technology has been around for?
Well, so in one form or another, it's been around since about the 70s. It was developed in the US and in Israel, mostly for vegetable production or vineyards, anything where you could basically put a dripper next to a plant.
Okay, so in the story that we just saw there, so it says that there is some research that shows that this system uses less water, cheaper to run, and it can yield better crops than other irrigation systems. So if that's the case, why isn't everyone already using it? And you had mentioned, like, if it's been around for decades, so why isn't everyone already using it?
Well, it is a bit more complicated when you have a field where you put tillage through, because you're burying lines in infrastructure underground, so there's a chance that you might hit that. Also, in field crop systems like the ones that we have here in southern Alberta, or even in the rest of Alberta, really, we grow crops at a much smaller distance, so you're not per se irrigating each and every plant separately, but you're putting in lines that then non-uniformly wet up the land. It's not always very practical, or at least at first sight, it doesn't make much sense. But it's not impossible at all. So you can, with the advancement of technology in terms of operating it at larger scales, of having lines that are sturdier and a better understanding of when and how you should irrigate a crop that you grow at a smaller distance than your line or your emitter spacing, that technology is now also more readily available for large-scale field production.
Yeah. So I understand that you are actually using this for research. So correct. So you have an 18-acre farm. You're using subsurface drip tech. You have that installed. What can you tell us about your project and the research that you're doing on that land?
Yeah, so the farm is actually a little bit larger. It's 385 acres, and we have various types of irrigation projects ongoing. So with normal center pivot technology, but then also with this specific area that's dedicated to subsurface drip irrigation. And we're looking at how you can use that system for field crop production, assuming that you would want to save water, but that you would also want to use the system as a vessel to inject other things. So fertilizer, for instance, or other products that you use normally over top of the land surface, that you would inject those straight into the root zone, and with that, potentially make products more available to your plant.
What kind of results have you seen? Have there been any surprises in it?
Well, it's, I mean, this will probably not come as a surprise to any crop scientist, but every crop responds differently to how you use the system. And that's always what makes agriculture, I guess, so tricky. You have to develop recommendations for each crop, and even for weather conditions, responses vary between years and between locations. So we've seen that our cereals have responded quite well to, say, a larger proportion of liquid fertilizer compared to solid. But for instance, for canola, we didn't see quite that same result. Canola did very well in terms of water productivity, though. So it responded, it really benefited from having water injected into the root zone instead of having it applied over top of the plants and then penetrating into the soil.
I'm curious, when it comes to kind of the uptake of subsurface drip technology, what kind of uptake would we have to see in Alberta in order to make like a meaningful difference in preserving water in this province?
Well, that's a great question. It depends a little bit on where you're coming from. So let's say that you, with a drip system, a farmer would be able to save 2 inches per year in irrigation. That doesn't sound like much, but that is equivalent to 280 years of water use of an average Canadian. So when you compare it to sort of your domestic water use, it's enormous. 2 inches on 2 or 3 fields compared to the entire irrigation area of southern Alberta, that is not a lot. So, but let's say that if we have 10 or 15% of our farmers applying and implementing SDI technology, then you would see significant savings in terms of agricultural water use as well.